I'm Brendan Clark. This is my co-host Swall Hall, and today we're meeting on uncommon ground. So it's been long time no see. So we've got plenty to talk about. Trump has rescheduled marijuana, legalized marijuana, as some people are saying. We'll talk about what it actually means. There is the Hunger Games, the Patriot Games Trump has announced, and people have kind of ran with from there in terms of what is this going to look like to celebrate America's 250th year of independence. And then we're going to get into the Epstein files stuff. Obviously, we got to. That's the big thing. It finally came out, or did it? We'll get into that. And then we're going to end with claim for claim. Those who have been watching the show are familiar with that. We're going to have a few hot takes. We're going to discuss them. So to start with Trump rescheduling marijuana, this is something, at least recently, every president, it's kind of like on the, are they going to do it? Is like this and that, because it's kind of supported by both parties. I guess you have like people in both parties that don't support it too. So like, I'd say it's as much of a bipartisan thing as you can think of, which has always confused me as to why it doesn't just get done. And here even, it seems kind of like half, like one, Trump does it by executive order, which
Right.
obviously the next president could just undo. Now, it would take a pretty, I don't think a president would come in and undo it just because of like where it's kind of going, but it could be. So it's not like they made this official and it's just rescheduled. I think they moved it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, if I'm
Correct.
correct.
Yep.
So you still can get penalized for some things that's still under the Controlled Substance Act. So there's still like federally some enforcement that can be had. It's just it does ease things up. So Swall, like, what have you heard about it? What are your thoughts when this kind of thing happens? And we can go from there.
Yeah, so you nailed it. It was schedule 1 to schedule 3, and so obviously schedule 1 is like the worst of the worst. That's where you're going to find your heroin, your fentanyl, your all the stuff that, you hear horror stories about growing up. And so me personally, I'm a fan of this move because I think that we need to be honest about which drugs do what things and affect people the most. Um, Now, there's an argument to be made that marijuana affects a lot of people just because it's so ubiquitous. So you could argue on that grounds, but as far as like the actual effects go, I mean, we're talking about making people lazier. We're talking about making people,
Eat
more
more.
laid back, slow to hand-eye coordination, stuff like that. Like, it's not to say there is no negative effects with marijuana, but compared to something like, cocaine or crack or
The
heroin or
other things
anything
in
like
Schedule
that.
1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it just seems really misplaced. And if we're going off of like danger to like to the body, like deaths or anything like that, there's no recorded marijuana deaths in human history. And there's several on every other drug you could think of, pretty much. And so, while my fellow Catholics are probably going to disagree with me, I think this is a good move. I think there's a difference between legal and moral and all these different things. And for me personally, as long as people are, not getting so high out of their minds that they're not able to function as members of society and aren't able to like do their duties, take care of their kids, take care of their spouses, themselves, all that stuff. It doesn't really bother me. If somebody wants to smoke a little bit on a day off, watch a movie, eat some popcorn and fall asleep, I think that's a waste of like the criminal justice system to try to arrest that person, use resources, keep them in jail for sometimes years. It's insane to me. So I think that this is a good move.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like I've even eased up. It's weird because like as I've grown older, it's like marijuana is less of even like a thing that I even think about as much. But like
Right.
when I was a kid, I always saw more, I guess, logic in some of it. Like, oh, if you're selling weed, it's still, there's the crime and the intent there. But like as I've gotten older, it's like you said, there's no deaths. It's not like it's a relatively harmful thing. Obviously, like if your impairment, if you're slowed down, like driving or something, like
Right.
it is as anything, right? But that we
Which is
don't like,
illegal for, I
or
mean,
I was gonna say
even
alcohol. We don't think
alcohol.
alcohol is
Yeah.
illegal. You know what I mean? And there's even a limit at which you can drink and drive. So it's like, to me, as I've gotten older, it's been like, why is this even a problem? Why is it scheduled at all? We probably should just deschedule it. One thing I think Biden did really well, and Trump obviously still has 3 years to do it, that I wish he would have done with the move, because it kind of seems performative a bit without it, is like the pardons, like sweeping pardons. Biden would always
Mm-hmm,
pardon
hmm.
thousands or hundreds of people each year who were convicted of like non-violent, just marijuana charges. And I think that something like that would go a long way as well, especially if we're like saying it's practically not like it's Schedule 3, which is maybe the lowest. Is there one lower than schedule? I think it's
As far as I know, it's the lowest,
yeah.
but I'm not an expert.
Yeah, me either. So it's like I would think that would be justified because it's weird to say like there's still people sitting in prison like halfway through a sentence and they're watching this happen and they're like, well, if I got put over now, they would just like take it and give me like a fine at
Right.
worst, you know? So that's kind of what I wish or hope comes next.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's been about a decade since Trump got in office the first time, but I do remember some stuff during the first administration. I know that, oddly enough, Kim Kardashian was a big champion of prison reform and was meeting with President Trump a few times about trying to get people out for those types of things. I'm not sure what came of that, if he released anybody pardon. I don't really remember the details, but yeah, I think that would be a great balancing of injustices, because I think, not to go on a whole rabbit hole, but I think a lot of homes and families have been affected by people who have been off the streets, out of their homes for years on end, as I've said, for nothing. And what's really insane to me has always been the whole, if you have a certain amount, it's a dealing charge regardless, even if it was for
Yeah.
personal use. It's like, what? Like, shouldn't we be able to have some proof of intent to sell? Like,
Right.
just having a lot, like,
Well, because I
maybe they
got a
just like
30
to
case
buy
of
in bulk.
beer.
Like,
Because
right,
I got
yeah,
a
if I
30
shop
case
at
of beer, I'm
Costco.
giving some to minors now. Like,
Right, right. Like, sorry, I like Sam's Club and BJ's and all that, but like, buying in bulk is normal. So I don't know. I thought that was dumb, but yeah, I think this is a good move. I have been seeing, specifically where we live, we're in the Midwest, a lot of representatives melting down over this and crying on the timeline about how they need to fight President Trump on this. I'm talking about Republicans mostly. I haven't really paid attention too much to the Democrats, but it's just like, relax. Like, there's so many more things important in this world, which is, I'm kind of like you. It's like, just why is this even a thing
yeah.
that we're
And
talking
it
about?
seems like because where we've seen it done, like in the States on these levels, it's not like crime spikes after they
No.
get revenue that they can use towards like
Yes.
roads, programs, schools, these kinds of things. Where we're from needs it. Indiana, we I got a pothole on every road I drive on. I
Oh,
legalize
it's so
weed and get rid
bad.
of the potholes. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
something. So I don't know. To me, it's a step in the right direction. I could give Trump a pat on the back for it. I don't have, I guess, too much to say about it. If you do,
Yeah, I you brought up the tax money, just as some quick numbers that I've known, just because I've been on the pro legalization side of this for a long time, is I believe it was like Washington. I'm trying to remember. It was all those Western states that were kind of like the first ones. And like the year that they legalized, it was like an extra $1 billion per state in tax revenue.
yeah,
And I've always used this as an argument of like, look, if we're trying to do stuff like free education, free healthcare, blah 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 blah, like, I'm so pro legalize it and tax the absolute ever loving crap out of it.
yeah,
30% tax. Like, I don't give a crap.
mm,
Sin tax. I'm down with that, because the potheads are still going to buy it. Like, they
yeah,
just will.
yeah,
And at that point, like, I here in Indiana, we have like D8, D9. We don't really have the full like legal weed, but we have like substitutes. And like, anybody that I know who's been a pot smoker in my life, most of them, like, they might drive out of state to get some every once in a while, but they're settling for the legal stuff here from
yeah,
convenience. And so people will buy it. It
yeah.
will squash the illegal market
And you got to
quite a
think
bit.
it, even just in terms of like an economic trade-off, I think that a lot of people would be willing to pay that tax if it meant, well,
Yeah.
now I can like drive home safely with this and it's, I don't
Yes.
got to worry
I'm
about going
not
to jail. Like,
sketching. Yeah.
I'll pay the 30% tax or whatever, I don't think it's the end of the world. It seems like it would make sense. So yeah, we definitely have common ground there if you want to take us
Yeah.
into the Hunger Games where
Yeah.
only one man will come out.
Yes. So President Trump announced the Patriot Games, where I believe one man and one woman. Is it from each state? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess 100 different participants are going to compete in physical fitness, strength, endurance, discipline, patriotism, and national pride. And obviously, the jokes, I mean, they write themselves. This is literally, to some degree, the plot of the Hunger
Yeah.
Games. Stuff like the Long Walk that just came out this year, the Stephen King, where they have everybody walk and walk and walk and walk for the country to show, endurance of men, and it's stuff like that.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I recommend it. But yeah, I would say it's like, I don't have a general problem with the idea of like sort of like a miniature Olympics, but like for the States, like that's not really that crazy to me. Making it the Patriot games and making it all like America is like kind of cornball to me. And I get why people are making the jokes. And I'm here for the memes. They're very funny. As long as it's not anything like conscription or anything
Yeah.
like that, if it doesn't start to actually go down the Hunger Games route, then I don't have much input on this. I'm not a big sports guy, but I mean, would find it entertaining. I think it could, economically, there could be a whole lot of stuff going on with sponsorships and uniforms and people putting ads, and like there could, it could be good for tax revenue as well, and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't really have much to add on that. What are your thoughts on the
Yeah,
Patriot games?
yeah, right. I also, like we kind of discussed before we hopped on. I hadn't really been looking into this before this. This was one of the things I saw on Facebook. And when I first saw it, I was kind of like, people, it's Facebook, they're lying, they're just making things up or whatever. And I looked it up and I saw like the video of like Trump like saying this and how it's like on his Truth Social. And I don't know. To me, I guess the things I like about it first, right, to be positive, there's something to be said about things that get like national pride, that might be the wrong word, but like, like a source of like motivation, for the
Sure.
nation or whatever, like the Olympics, right? That's like a big event for like the
Mhm.
entire country when it comes around. I think that's a thing, like you mentioned, I hadn't even really thought of, but you mentioned like sponsorships. That could be a big thing. I guess it just depends on like what the money's going to. Like if it's
Right.
like how the ballroom where we have private people and it's like, yeah, we're making money, but it's like these private corporations that are making the money or whatever, then it's like, also, and then what I don't like about it is like it seems from what I've seen also, and granted, I'm coming from like what Trump is saying about it. So obviously he's gonna
Sure.
frame it in the most
Trumpish
culture
way
war way
possible. Yeah.
possible. But like he's doing the whole and you'll agree with this, obviously. Well, we're gonna disagree here. But he's doing the whole only biological males can compete with the men and only biological females, which to me gets a bit weird because the Olympic standard has never been that, right? Like it's always been like if you're under the levels, they have like the whole guidelines, right? And if we're saying that this is like supposed to be kind of like the Olympics, then why wouldn't we use the Olympic standards? It seems like a bit of like, F you liberals, like, backdoor to me. So I don't know if it doesn't divulge into too much of like a weird culture war, stroke Trump's ego thing. I don't really care, but it's Trump. So there's a big chance it will
Right.
be that.
Well, the good news is, I mean, I don't know. I actually didn't watch the full video of him announcing it. I just read the articles, but did he give a date? Like, will this even be happening when he's still here, or is he just
It
kind of
wasn't.
pushing it into motion? You know what I mean?
So
Like, he might not
it'll
even
be
be around.
Yeah, it'll be for the 250th like
Oh, okay.
celebration for our independence. I
Okay. So
think
next
I know
year.
it's next year. I was about to say it's one of the years he's in, but I don't know for sure. But it was just like a reporter asking him about it. So he didn't like I don't know if you've ever
There's no
seen
hard
he
date.
talks to
Yeah.
reporters. He doesn't really ever answer anything. He kind of just was like, yeah, when kind of like this and that. And he's like, no biological this, and made sure to throw that in and then moved on to the next thing. So
And yeah, on that part of it, and I get a lot of flack from this on my side. I'm not a sports guy. I don't really care all that much about the whole biological male, female, whatever in sports. Like I do, I have sympathy for anybody who it's their dream to be like the number one, whatever, and they feel like they got, like lost an opportunity or something. Or the only area where I really get concerned at all is like MMA, anything where it's like physical stuff. But honestly, I'm more on the fence of I don't even know if we should like have that as a thing in
yeah,
general. But
yeah.
so that doesn't really bother me all that much. But yeah, I could see him trying to spin it to be that way. Neither way really, like I said, bothers me all that much. If we want to make it biological, we can. If we want to make it parameters of testosterone or whatever, or just capability in general and group everybody together based on their test performances. Again, I don't really know the in and outs of sports, so I don't really know how you would do that. If it's like I did track, so like, times, if everybody's in like the 20-second to 21-second time range, I
Yeah.
don't really care if you're a guy or a girl. I guess it doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
the
that's not a big
way
deal to me.
the way I've always thought about it, I do think going by like testosterone and stuff, like anything you're trying to target of like a disadvantage, that obviously is going to be like a more efficient way. But then it's like, there's like the cost and that kind of thing. But like my opinion is I don't think there's a blanket right answer. And I think that's where most people struggle is they want it to be either like one side, obviously, every sport, no biological male, no, this, and then the other side, every sport, can mix. And I think
Right.
there's some sports where it very obviously makes sense. And then there's some sports where it doesn't make sense, like
Yeah.
MMA or boxing,
Yeah.
and even then, I think you could maybe think of ways that it could, but then it's like, to what extent do we want to do that when we have a working formula? And
Right.
to me, the way like it boils down to like, I have obviously my personal opinion. What it boils down to me though, is like, it's private companies that hold these sports.
Hmm.
Let private companies make their own
Hmm.
decisions.
Hmm.
And you know what I mean? The crowd, their viewership.
Yeah. And as long as the players are aware of what's going on, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? I don't
yeah,
want anybody
exactly. Yeah,
blindsided, like, oh, I didn't agree to this or whatever.
exactly.
But like,
Yeah,
as long as everybody knows and everybody consents, it's like, who really
yeah.
cares? Like, it
Because it's
seems like
entertainment
such a
at the end of the
waste
day.
of
Yeah.
a conversation to be having on the national stage, for the most part to me. And even with like the testosterone and stuff, it gets to a point where it's like, okay, but like, is that not somewhat equated to like natural talent at that point? Like I was born with a proclivity for more. I'm not talking about me, but
Yeah.
born with a proclivity for more testosterone or denser bones. Like, yeah, I have an advantage, but like, sucks to suck. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
No, I
that's kind
agree.
of the
That's
point of this.
that's the
Like,
point I make all the time is like I'm a big basketball guy. Like if you look at like Victor Wembanyama,
yeah,
right? I don't know if you watch basketball at all, but he's like 7'5", right?
yeah,
This
yeah,
guy
yeah.
with long, like
What do
one
we
of the
ban
longest
him just
wingspan.
because?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like you're gonna say that's unfair because it is. You think Chris Paul, who's like 6 foot tall, having to guard that guy in the paint is fair? It's
yeah,
not. You know what I mean?
right,
But it's sports isn't fair. So it's like, to
right,
what extent do we want to draw the line? Is what I've always thought. But yeah. Do you have
cool.
anything else on the Thunderdome?
No,
I
just
just hope I
I
just hope
volunteer as
Indiana
tribute.
wins. Yeah. I just hope Indiana wins. Represent.
Yes. Hey, the eye.
Yeah. So going on to the Epstein files, this we've talked about the Epstein files a couple times. It's been a big thing for years. Bigger thing this last year, I guess, so to
Hmm.
speak, now that it can be released, it's been in the mainstream. Well, for those, I guess, since we didn't talk about when the Congress passed the thing originally, they did pass something that ordered the DOJ to release the Epstein files. This was, to pinpoint exactly, 2-ish weeks ago.
Yep.
And they had until last Friday of us shooting this. It'll be a little before when you guys see it, but it's a few days ago that they had to release these files. They waited until the very last day, first off, which is kind of funny, and then release it, but it's heavily redacted. Like there is so much redacted where they were only supposed to redact like victims' names, like sensitive information, like, dates and things like that, or not dates, but addresses and things like that. And it's just clear that they're redacting who? Donald Trump. I don't know. It could be anybody, right? But that has people up in a stir. The victims, Democrats, even Republicans who wanted this released, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, kind of feel slighted. People who have been following this feel slighted. Swa, I'm curious kind of what you think, having looked through them in your circles, what
Sure.
people are feeling.
Um, yeah, I'm probably gonna have a somewhat unpopular opinion, maybe on this. Um, which is, I mean, I consider myself not a fence sitter, but I'm a pretty in the middle guy on a lot of things. And for something like this, like, of course I care about the victims, and of course I care that this happened. Um, to whatever degree it did happen, whatever it did happen. Obviously, we don't know a lot of it just because of what we're talking about. A lot of it's been redacted, so we don't even know to what extent all of has gone on. So there's a lot of speculation, a lot of now internet lore about the whole Epstein thing, the island, who's involved, what's going on, is Wayfair involved? There's so
I
much,
agree here.
there's so much involved now. But for me, I know a lot of people have been like, every time something in the news happens, they're like, it's a distraction. It's from the Epstein. It's a distraction. Whereas I kind of see it somewhat the other way, where like this is sort of a distraction from the stuff that we can do something about in our country and in our lives right now. Like, homeboy is dead. We're not convicting him. It's not going to happen anymore, obviously. They have all the information, the government does. So if they want to be making arrests, they can go do that, and they can do it right now. So it's not like we're gaining anything on that front. This is literally just to appease the public, just so we are caught up with what's going on. And for that reason, like, yes, I would love to know. It'd be great to know if Trump was involved, who was involved, to what degree they were involved, knowingly, unknowingly, etc. But if nobody's going to make any arrests and if nothing's going to come from it, then I don't really see much of a point besides riling up everybody even more. And so for me, like, yeah, I think it's dirty that if Trump is in there, that they're hiding him. I think it's dirty that Trump said, release it, Democrats, release it, release it. And then it was him who had the power and he was like, there's nothing to release. Like, you're lying, dude. Like, then why were you championing for it earlier?
Mm.
So I think all that's scummy. And like I said, like, if I could like press a button and vote tomorrow, I would vote to release everything. But I'm just saying, it's like every time I see a news story on like Facebook, TikTok, or whatever, the comments are the files must be so bad for them to put this story out, and it's like, can we just move on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's been years, and so I know that might be unpopular, but that's kind of my take on this.
So I don't disagree with you fully. I don't know if I'm like as far in that camp, but I do think there's something to be said that a lot of people, maybe because it's so mainstream that they don't realize, but there is a point of this, the whole Epstein thing, where it leaves reality and like empirical, like this happened and we know it, and it becomes
Right.
like conspiracy. And
Yes.
part of that is like the idea that there's like a Dr. Doofenshmirtz villain cooked up list of names, and
Yes.
like that just proves everyone's guilt or
Right.
something. To me, that's always been weird. I never thought that that would exist. I never thought there would be like smoking gun evidence. I will say, having seen some of the pictures that Trump is floating around, all those woke Democrats are going to have to return their Bill Clinton hats, their Bill Clinton flags. They're going to have to
It's not
trade back
great.
in their Bill Clinton crypto, and they're going to have to leave the Clinton cult. No, but yeah, no, where I think I don't know, disagree is probably too strong of a word, but where I kind of venture off a bit is there is something to be said about closure for the victims, right? Who have been
Sure.
calling for this. There's like a strong, and it's not even just like a few, there's like a strong presence of at least those who have came out. There could be
Mhm.
plenty others who obviously aren't
Of
coming
course.
out, so maybe they don't support something like this. But those who come out, they're pretty unanimous in that they want these things released, their families, these kinds of things, they want the info out there. And it's just, to me, it feels almost evil, right? Like evil
Mhm.
that you would convince these people that you were going to be their white knight to like
Mhm.
essentially almost get their votes. It seems like that's what it's ostensibly, it seems like it was to get their votes, because like as soon as the second it was not politically advantageous to him, he's like, we're not talking about this anymore, we're not doing it, we're redacting everything. And like, because it's not even in Republican discourse anymore, Fox News doesn't talk about it, none of that.
Nope.
Now all you see is like there's some of the MAGA gremlins on Twitter that'll share the Bill Clinton pictures because now it's all about Bill Clinton. But to me, it's like that's, I think, what should be focused on. But I kind of am also with you in that I don't know if we'll ever get that now.
And like I said, imagine they release everything and somehow, again, there's not going to be like, this is who did it. My name is Epstein. Here's the list of all my compatriots. Like, no, that's not that's not
Yeah,
happening. But
like
like, let's say that did happen. No, and then now knowing that the government hasn't arrested these people, isn't going to arrest these people.
yeah.
Like, what does that do to the? You know what I mean? Like, to me, that would. I don't know if that would be worse. I don't want to speak for the victims, but it feels like that would be really bad as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
separate from just keeping everything private, of like, oh, so you guys literally do know and you're not going to do anything, so it's really, screw me at this point. Like, that just seems really bad to me. And like I said, I get it, the morbid curiosity, and I think the reason why is because, sort of, I don't know all conspiracies, but like a good 60% of the conspiracies seem to go back to like trafficking, like
Um,
Pizzagate, all that stuff. Like, there's always this idea, and it's always not so much like, yes, the MAGAs, but like even more like like the MAGAs who need to be like actually like medicated, like actually like are really having breaks with
yeah.
reality type of MAGAs. Um, just have this obsession with all of the elites and all of the rich people and every celebrity in Hollywood. They're having big evil bonfires in the woods, worshiping owl goddesses and sacrificing children, cutting out their hearts. Like, there's this whole narrative that just seems to always be underlying on the far right, sort of what's the Jones guy, Alex Jones level of just like craziness. And I think that that's why America can't let this thing go, because it's like, aha, see, we told you, but it's like, no, like, yes, but also not quite that, you know what I mean? So I get it, but at the same time, like, people are dying, people are hungry, there's wars going on. There's just, I'm not that this is, people are getting abused. This is also horrible, but I'm just saying there's people right now who are getting abused. Let's go stop those. You know what I mean? There's so much other stuff we could be focusing on, but that's, again, that's just me, but I get it.
Yeah,
So
and the last thing
fence
I'll say,
sitter.
I also think I think it's a bit crazy that we got so much released about Trump. Like, I mean, we already knew Trump was like on the logs, but now we had like the letters he sent to Epstein. We had the email from Epstein talking about Trump.
The
It,
check. He
like,
was holding
yeah,
the check with his name on
yep,
it. Yep.
all of that. We had pictures released of Trump with redacted faces of what seems to be would be victims, or those at
Right.
least innocent enough that their faces had to be hidden, and all this other stuff. And in none of what's been released was there any like info or anything like that. And it just seems we're never going to have answers to that. And that's like another thing. Like when we're talking about the president who could possibly be implicated in this, I think there is
Right.
like a different level of seriousness, at least Congress should have
Sure.
about it, that none of them do on the Republican side, because they don't want it to like hurt them in the next election.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think, yeah, I think we're in agreement on that.
Yeah, so we'll go to claim for claim. Three hot takes. You guys have seen it time and time again. If we agree, there won't be much disagreement. If we disagree, we'll spend a bit of time on each topic. Swal, I'll let you go first.
All right. My first claim is voting should require proof that you actually understand what you're voting on. Um, so democracy depends on consent, but consent without understanding isn't really meaningful. And so I think that we already require basic competency tests for things like driving, being a doctor, practicing medicine, firearms, all this stuff. But then, like, voting, can decide if we go to war, taxation, the courts, our rights, all sorts of different stuff. And to just be like anybody who just has no basic understanding of government, the way our country works, anything about this has an equal vote. I get it on the, of course, I'm not trying to take people's rights away or anything, but it's just like with driving a car. Yeah, everybody should have the ability to drive a car, but you still have to prove that, like, you physically have the ability to drive a car. And I kind of feel the same way here, where yes, everybody has the right to vote, but like, you need to kind of prove that, like, what the heck is going on when you're voting, at least like what you're voting for, not necessarily like I said, like every single in and out or anything, but like having a general idea. And so just a couple stats to sort of back up why I'm saying this. Um, Over 33% of Americans can't name a single Supreme Court justice. They have no idea who's on the Supreme Court. Um, only 36% of Americans can name all three branches of government. What? There's only three of them, guys. Um, and then countries that have civics tests,
The
like
House, the Senate, and the President, bro.
like Germany and Canada, they justify them and they say that they are actually democracy preserving, and I kind of agree with that. And so obviously, as we saw during really 20, you could argue since 2016, but I would say like 2020 was like the biggest ramp up of like political misinformation. There's just a lot of that going around, man. And I think that it would behoove us and benefit the country to just have some guardrails. So yeah, that's my claim, my take.
So I soft disagree. Only soft because I do think you're like identifying a problem that I do think exists and should be solved, in that like stupid people vote, people who have no idea what's going on vote, lots of things, right? And it leads to people like Donald Trump, in my opinion, right? And but so problems, right? One is historically, when we've done tests for voting, they were used to discriminate against minorities, right? And that's kind of why we did away with those things. It's kind of why we have laws like against that right now. The other problem that I like off top just comes to me is who decides this. It could become kind of like a bit of a tug of war, where whichever party has the majority then sets the rules needed for voting, which would scare the hell out of me if it was Republicans, that then they would use it to discriminate against minority groups and people that they don't want voting. So those are two big concerns. And what I've always put forth is, I think we just need more like means of education and like civic understanding. Like, it should be a class you take all 4 years of high school, like civics or government or whatever. I don't know how your school was. When I went to high school, I took one semester of US government and then
Same.
one semester of US history, which was like we talked about like wars and things, but like not necessarily politics or anything. So like a bit of history, a bit of like politics, but only like a semester. And I came out of there not knowing anything about
Yeah.
my teacher was so unserious. It was like usually an elective class, like those teachers don't
Yep.
try as hard. So I agree with you, there's a big problem. I just think it's problematic when we go for like setting a standard that people have to meet.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. And the who decides thing is obviously sort of an issue. But I'm not even talking about like, 20, 30, 40 question crazy exam. I'm talking about like, what are the branches of government?
Yeah.
What is each of their functions? What does Congress do? What is a bill? Like just like the most basic things, maybe like 10 questions, boom, you're in. And maybe again, like this is a, in my perfect world where we can get the sides to agree to put this into practice or whatever.
Mhm.
It's like this is it can't be changed for it's not up for review for 10 years or something. Put a limit on it so it's not just like every other president is just swapping it, like make somehow block it so it's like it's got to stand for at least a period of time before it's up for review again, and then we can
Sure.
kind of relook at it. I'm just spitballing here, but I think it seems like we agree that on the problem and just less on the medicine for the problem and how
Yeah.
to fix it. And I'm even down with like maybe it's a part of the schools, like it is at the end of your government uh class, and like yeah, every maybe all 4 years of high school you're required to take a US government class,
Yeah.
and then your fourth year there's it's as a part of your school assignment, it's like a graduation exam for getting your little voter card, or I don't know what it would be, but
Yeah.
I just think
There's
that
a lot
that
of classes in
could
high school
could do a
people
lot
should
of
take
things like that.
that they don't. Like
Oh
economics.
yes, yes,
Economics would be a
yes.
big one if we're talking strictly political. I think there should be like a
Yes.
parenting class.
Yep.
It's
Based.
required. I'd say we probably agree there. But yeah, I do think you're correctly identifying a problem. I would disagree with the means, though. I think even if you did, like we had a thing where it was like, oh, here's the law, and it's not going to change 10 years. Well, I think that then creates like a precedent where if a party gets a majority, well, then they can just pass a bill that adds another law on top of that. Well, we won't mess with this law.
Sure.
But
True.
here's another law of 10 more
Right.
questions. You have to
Right.
pass this test and then pass this one. And I don't know.
Facts.
It's could be scary to me. So like I don't know, but I don't. It's not a hard disagree. Like I do think that's an issue, right? And too many dumb people voting leads to dumb people in office. So my hot take, again, I never know how much we're going to disagree on some of these, but corporate power is a bigger threat to individual freedom in the US than government regulation is. I think that this is true because private power holds more power in terms of like your freedom of choice than our government. Most Americans live in like an at-will state. I think it's 49 of the 50 states. I might be wrong there, but I know at least a majority of Americans are at-will employees. Things like healthcare, housing, internet access internet access is controlled by monopolies and corporate power. And then things like healthcare, housing, the ability to pay for rent is tied up with having a job, living in an at-will state. Obviously, your ability to pay for those are at the will of your corporate employer. Some things that I guess I had here to back that up. Only 10% of private sector workers are unionized. 26 million Americans are uninsured. 45,000 deaths a year are associated with the lack of healthcare insurance. Private insurers deny 10 to 20% of claims on average. Some exceed 30%. This is corporate power choosing if you deserve to live or die, essentially, with what treatments you can receive. And then the last one I want to make is monopolies kind of control a lot of sectors. You see this in food as well, but prescription drugs kind of make it hard. Patent monopolies, getting patents on these drugs, have it to where only a few companies control the majority of pharmaceuticals coming in this country. Meat packing, like the meats we get, there's 4 firms that control over 80%. Airlines, 4 companies control 80%. Internet in most regions, you can only get one, or there's only like one option for you to have. So you're limited in your freedom because of expanding corporate power more than you are government regulation.
So this will be a soft disagree, only because I think this one mainly comes down to which freedoms and in what way you're looking at freedom, because I can agree with pretty much almost everything you said as far as like the corporations buying up the homes and having a 1,000 homes per city or whatever, and jacking up rent prices and ruining everything, and that affects your freedom in the sense of, well, now I have to pay $3,200 a month for rent, and so I can only have so much freedom to spend on this, that, or the other. Whereas when the government affects your freedoms, it's more of a direct one-to-one line of like, you can't smoke until you're 21. It's like directly affecting your freedom, whereas the other way is like more of a roundabout way, and eventually it affects your freedom because you're constrained. um and so it's kind of just like two different ways of looking at freedom. And so that's the only reason I soft disagree. I would more say equal, I guess. As far as potential, when it comes to actual in practice, again, it's just going to depend on which things matter to you more, how you tallying the freedoms. Because again, we could go through a list, and the list might be longer of things the government says no, no, you can't. No, like it might be a longer list, but if I can't have a home, that might be more important to me than anything on that list. And then also as a thing to add, when I first became somewhat politically minded, I was a libertarian, and then I became a left, or I was a right leaning libertarian, then I became a left leaning libertarian, and now I think libertarianism is stupid. So I'm not some individual freedom absolutist. The argument that got me was a very basic one from the streamer Destiny, when he talked about making smoking illegal in like restaurants and stuff. And I was like, yeah, no, that's based. Yeah, I thank God we don't have to allow people to smoke while I'm out with my family at the Fazoli's and they're just smoking a cigarette right next to me. Like, screw your freedom to do that.
Mhm.
I have the freedom to not be inhaling your smoke while I'm eating.
Yeah.
And so that kind of got me of like, yeah, we do infringe on people's freedoms. And it comes down to what kind of world do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a world where my baby is dying of lung cancer at age 7 because he was smelling smoke everywhere he went? Or do I want to live in a world where a bunch of grown men cry because they have to smoke at their own house?
And wear a
Like,
mask when there's a pandemic.
right. Like I'll choose that second one. So I don't even really like, I care about individual freedom, but like, it's not like the all hail individual free. Like, I don't really care
Yeah.
at that level personally.
I
So
agree. I agree.
soft disagree.
I agree. We don't have to stay on it too long. The only thing I would say is, I think that the government is less of a threat because it enables more freedom. Like you're free to like walk down the street safely because we restrict,
Sure.
you can't just kill someone and things like that. And I don't think corporations, I guess you can make the argument through like paying people enables you like
Yeah.
economic freedom, but I don't know.
It's really like a glass half full, half empty type of like, it's perspective. It's like, again, what are you putting the weight on?
Yeah. I think you summed it up well there. It's
And I
definitely,
always say, I'll just drink the
freedoms.
glass. I'm thirsty.
yeah. There you go. So what
Yeah,
would you-
claim number 2. You might agree. I think this might be an agreement.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
Congress should be legally barred from passing omnibus bills. Every bill should be single issue. I think that the reason is because we've all seen the gridlock and everything get just frozen up and nothing happens because people are putting in, oh, we need to pass let me think of something, COVID relief, but we also need to send $10 billion to Israel. But it's like, no, that's a different, like, get that out of here, dude. Or we need to vote on, I don't know, whether we're going to war on this thing, but also we're going to fund food stamps in this bill. Like, no, do a food stamp bill. Get that out of here, dog. And so I think that the average bill is exceeds 1,500 to 2,000 pages. And I think that you get a bunch of congressmen who are not reading these things. They have no idea what's in them half the time. Their secretaries are reading them, and then they're just, especially now, maybe they're like scanning these boys into Chat GPT, summarize this bill, and then telling the guy what to like. It's a mess. It's just insane. Like and I'd be okay with even like a sort of halfway of like, okay, we're limiting it to like 5 things or whatever. But like, I just think that this is insanity, and we could get a lot more done as a country if we knew exactly what we were voting on. And I say we as our representatives, obviously. And I just think that would benefit everybody. So yeah, that's my second claim.
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. The only critique I would have is something I know you would agree with, is that the reason people that they do omnibus bills is because they spend so long of the year on recess, like out of like they're about to go be out of office for like the next 2 weeks or whatever. They were just out of office. They just had the shutdown where they were out for 40 days.
Yep.
So they spend so much of the calendar year where they're not in, and that's what creates the need for it.
Hmm.
But it then creates all the problems you're talking about. So I would agree that I think every bill needs to be like single, and I think it would also help people realize like who they should be voting for and supporting, because a lot of people get away with voting against something that will help their city. You see this a lot, like a good thing is the Biden, when he did the bipartisan
Yep.
infrastructure bill, like Nancy Mace voted against that, but then a bunch of money came to her district for different projects, and it created a bunch of jobs, and she campaigned on that. She said, I brought us jobs and all of this. And then when she was called out about voting no on it, she said, well, I voted no on it because of these things that were in it. And I think it would be a lot more straightforward if, well, there's nothing
It
else in
gives
it.
them cover. It gives them cover.
Exactly. So yeah, I completely agree with you here.
Sweet.
Awesome. Did you
All
have
right.
anything
What's
else you
your?
want to?
No, I mean you said you agreed, so we'll take
All right,
it.
so
What's your second one?
we'll get to the disagreement. I almost positive you'll disagree with this one. Or maybe not. I don't know. Sometimes I'm wrong, but sometimes I think we won't disagree and I'm wrong too. So my second claim is secular societies outperform religious ones on every meaningful quality of life metric. Countries with lower religious levels, like religiosity, or I always pronounce that wrong, but like levels of,
Religiosity. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They outperform in things like the World Happiness Report, the Human Development Index. Nordic countries are the best example of this. They have very low levels of religious activity, and they regularly rank the highest, like Finland, Denmark, Iceland, Sweden. They're all top 5, and they're also in the top, I think, 10 of like lowest levels of religious activity. And then there's I know this doesn't correlate specifically with Christianity, but then countries like Sudan, Yemen, they have very high levels of religious activity, very low levels of obviously freedom, happiness, things like that. Sudan is experiencing genocide. Yemen, a child dies every 10 minutes, things like this. So like what seems to be a bigger indicator on happiness is economic opportunity. So I just think that when it comes to like focusing on things like, you see like JD Vance, what made me think of this claim is JD Vance did a speech the other day and he said, America's a Christian nation. Our morals and things have to be founded on Christianity, and it leads people to better outcomes and this and that. And that doesn't seem to be true.
Yeah. So I might agree, but for different reasons, and we'll probably disagree about the reasons. And I'm gonna say like depends on. Well, let me get clarification. When you say you said secular based, is that the term you used?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would just look
And so by that, do you mean like
secular
would
society.
you like is the U.S. secular society to you?
Yeah, but when I like I'm saying secular, I guess that is to the broad term of there's not like a
Uh,
religious
uh,
identity or
State
whatever to the
religion.
country. And then zooming in like specifically, it's countries with lower religious activity. Like America
Okay.
has high religious activity, so we don't actually rank that high on the happiness report. But Nordic countries that have low religious activity rank pretty high on things like that.
Okay, so I'm gonna, yeah, soft agree, and because like I said, I will agree because the majority, if not all of them, I would need to double check. I was trying to Google real quick, but the
Mm.
majority of like countries that are going to have a state or nation religion are going to be Islam countries. Are going to be Muslim people who are living under Sharia law, which I think is going to contribute greatly to the lack of happiness, specifically in women, just in the way that Sharia law is written. And so I don't. So I would agree with you there on that. And then when it comes to the actual religiosity, there I would say it's more of a correlation rather than a causation, because I'm sure at least you would agree with this. Like for the U.S., I think the reason we have low happiness would be stuff like it's really I can't afford to buy a house. I can't afford to do this. I can't afford to do that. There's a bunch of homeless people. Like none of these things are really religiously. It has nothing to do with us practicing religion per se for why we're so unhappy here in America.
I think it depends on the perspective of who we're talking about. And that's kind of the point I made. I do think economic like opportunity is the biggest indicator. But then if you're looking at like gay people, right, who are persecuted by Christians regularly, or like, I mean, Islamophobia is the highest hate crime. Christians disproportionately like take part in
Sure.
that, unfortunately. Things like that obviously are going to bring your happiness down. So I think
Yeah,
it
I'll
depends.
agree. I'll definitely agree that it can cause some issues. And the only, like, I live in America. I like America. I'm down with a no specific enshrined religion in the country. And I know that's a hot take for my rad trads, but
Mhm.
the only way that it really could possibly work is if like legitimately all of the members of the country are full-fledged believers and want to support that, in
It
which
would
case then
be
I think it could.
chaotic for America.
Yes, exactly. And so I don't, again, I'm not going to say causation like it's the religion that's making everybody sad. I don't think that that's the case. From my understanding, the numbers are pretty equal. You can find some studies that put atheists and secular people slightly ahead, but I don't think it's ever been like they're 20 times more happy. And I think you can, I've found a few studies that are the same way. Just back when I was an atheist arguing with Christians, they'd come up with their own, studies and stats and show that, it's actually like 21% versus your 18, and it's always very negligible.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem to me that the religion has that much effect on people's happiness overall. So I would say, did I say soft degree? I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I wasn't, to be clear, I wasn't saying there is like causation of like religion, poor outcomes necessarily. I do think not, I don't know if I would say there's like that for obviously religious people. I think if anything, I could see how religion would be a big help for people who believe it in terms of like
Sure.
purpose. When I was religious, like when I grew up and I thought when I died, I'm going to go to heaven and all of this, dude, life was so much more of a breeze than now when I'm like, bro, when I die, it's over with. Like, so I get it. But for other people, right, is where I think the negative effects are. But what's your third claim?
So this one would have, well, maybe my phrasing you won't disagree with, but my implication you certainly will. Save my spiciest one for last.
Okay. I did the
No,
opposite.
nobody is born in the wrong body. Human beings aren't minds trapped in defective shells, so I don't think that anybody can be born in the wrong body. I think you are your body and your soul. It is all one unified thing. And so I'm not going to deny that, people who suffer from things like gender dysphoria and feel uncomfortable in their own bodies, but it's not the wrong body objectively. It is, you are your body. It's not even possible. And the only way to appeal to it is to sort of concede spiritualism. You have to sort of concede that there's some soul out there of you who needs to be placed inside of a body. So to even make the claim, you're starting to get into metaphysical spiritual realities. And so a lot of people on the left will want to claim atheism and then also make this spiritual claim of being born in the wrong body, and they're incompatible. It's not even possible. And so yeah, that's my core claim. I've got some stats here, but I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always not liked that phrase, at least while I've been an atheist, just because kind of for the same implications you're saying. I don't think souls exist. So like when you say like, oh, born in the wrong body, I've always thought that kind of implies the wrong thing, because like the issue is gender incongruence, which is about your identity not lining up with your body, which I guess I could see why that would lead people to say like, oh, not my body. But your identity is really just like complex systems can create complex processes. Some of these we understand, some of these we don't. And like identity seems to necessarily rely on your brain, right? Like there is a rational commitment there to the brain existing for an identity to exist. Because without our brains, we wouldn't have an identity. At least that seems to be our scientific understanding of how these things work. It's like a emerging property. It's a property of a brain and identity. It's not like a tangible thing. That's my understanding of like neuroscience of where we're at
Mm-hmm,
with it.
mm-hmm.
And on those grounds, I've always kind of just never, and this was actually what led me to atheism, was actually one of the first things, is that I don't think that there's a way to prove a soul. So I don't necessarily believe that souls exist. I don't know if but I guess I disagree with the implication of your claim. I don't know if I ever said that at any point, but I just
Yeah.
took issue with you invoking souls.
Yeah. And for me, back when I was an atheist, what I called the soul was what you would probably call identity. It was whatever makes schwa schwa, and me, like me, and not you, that is the soul. I'm not saying it's at the time. I wasn't saying it was anything spiritual or anything like that. I didn't really have an explanation for it. I just knew there was something about me that separated me from being you or my wife or anybody else, and that it seems to uh withstand me being a 1 year old to me being a 100-year-old. And whatever that thing is, that's the soul. But that's not the same as like my hand. You know, you can chop off my hand, and I'm still me. Like that's, you know what I mean? And so when you said, you know, the brain, you would say that that is the source of it. I would say that's the seed of it. But that is also your body. The brain is part of the body. And so this goes more with what I'm saying of it's just not even, it's sort of a nonsense statement unless you're going to go spiritual to say you're born in the wrong body, because you are your body. Like there is no separating the two.
I don't know if I would say that's true.
The
I
brain
would
is
think,
part of the body, right? Like it
yeah,
has to be.
well, yeah, but I think that more of what we cling to in terms of when we think of self are properties of the brain. Like, and you watch Destiny, so I know you've heard him
Mhm.
talk about like kind of the experiment where you cut off
Yes, you
the
cut off the
head
head.
and then there's the robot head and the head on a body. I've always thought most people would think that you're more of yourself as the head on the robot
Yes,
body, because
correct.
I think it's more about the properties emerging from your brain, which I do agree, like, yes, that's part of your body, but I do think it's more so like you're not as attached to your body as you are these properties of your brain, if that makes sense.
Right. But, and essentially what I'm saying is those things can't be separated. They are kind of synonymous to a degree,
Like,
because
I think,
even if it's an emergent property of your body at that point, you know what I mean? Like you can't, there's no version of having you that doesn't involve some level of body as well,
sure, but
because
I
your
think that,
brain would
like,
be body. So
so like your sense of self obviously relies on that's what identity is,
it's
right? So
contingent on
yeah,
your
yeah,
body. Yeah.
yeah. So my thing is like if that ceased, like let's say whatever it is in your brain that allows you to have this, that like is cut off, you're not going to be there like, this is me, you're going to be essentially nothing, right? In terms of like how you like, you can't even fathom it necessarily,
You
but
mean if your head was cut off and
like
not
a
like
brain dead
plugged into
person,
anything?
like a
Yeah.
brain
Yes,
dead
yes, yeah,
person
yeah,
on like a
yeah.
machine or whatever, right? Yeah. So I would think then
Your
that,
sense of self would be gone. Yeah. You would
yeah,
lose consciousness completely.
yeah. So and again, it's a bit of a thing because I would say like the rational commitment is to then the emergent property, because the emergent property comes from the brain, but you can have the brain without the property. So you're not necessarily attached to the brain. But then I guess then I could see how that kind of regresses back, obviously, to
And
the body. So
yeah,
I don't
and
know.
obvious.
I do disagree with the implication, but I also think
Well, yeah, I was
phrasing
about to
is nonsensical.
expound. Obviously, my implication is, so you're not born in the wrong body. You have a disconnect between what you feel your body should look or be like and what it actually is,
But
and
that's
that
an
that
actual
disconnect.
problem, right?
Yes, of course that's an actual problem, but I would call it a problem, whereas they would say like that's who I am, and that's where the disagreement comes in between the
Well,
two
to be
sides.
clear, that's
We say it's a
definitionally,
problem and problems need to be fixed, and they say it does need to be fixed.
well, it's definitionally a disability at that point. At least if it's causing you, a disability is like a mental condition that
So
causes
you would
you.
call being trans a disability?
Well, not all trans people have gender dysphoria.
Well, then what do they then what do they have? Just preference at that point?
Yeah, well, and that's from the APA by the person, the APA who creates the DSM-5, who diagnoses gender dysphoria. They've doubled
Yeah,
down on
so
this
but
from the
if you don't
DSM-3.
have, what are you saying that is the case? What's going on there
Gender
then?
dysphoria specifically hinges on this gender incongruence. So
No,
it's
that I understand. I
discomfort,
mean,
right?
the trans people that don't have it,
Right.
are you saying it's a choice like dyeing your hair at that point? Like I just want to be trans, or like what's going on
No,
there then?
no, they still have their identity. They still have this, I don't know, I guess the words to put it into. They still have the identity disconnect, for lack of a better word there, but there's not the issues arising from it. Like it's not causing them a sense of discomfort. It's not hindering their life. They're not thinking about it. And I would say like you see this actually commonly even in cis people, right? Like men will look at themselves and they're like, oh, well, I'm a man. Men are supposed to be strong. I have to go to the gym. Women will be like, women have long hair and wear makeup and wear dresses. So I have to do this and this. So like this sort of like gender incongruence from your identity is something all people experience. I would say on various levels.
I guess I'm just trying to pinpoint. So when you say trans, then but not having gender dysphoria, then what is the problem? That's like, I guess, why are they trans? What's trans about them at that point? I guess I'm confused there.
Is that well, trans is just your gender doesn't align with your sex. Gender dysphoria is when that causes you discomfort or like
Yeah, well,
hindrance in
that's
your
what I'm
life.
asking. So if your gender does, when you say your gender, if it's not dysphoria, like, oh, my gender is, are you saying then it's like, I want to have blonde hair. I just want this gender. I just want it. Preference.
No, no. I don't know
Then
where,
where's
I
the
don't
gender?
necessarily know
Where's
what
the
part you're
gender?
confused at.
I'm confused on what
Gender comes
gender
from
is
identity.
in this.
Gender is identity, right? Gender is
Yes, but then you're saying there
part
is
of identity
a there's a disconnect between your sex and
and your
your
gender.
identity,
Yes.
and they should align, but they don't. So that's a problem.
No, no. Trans people without gender dysphoria are saying there's a disconnect, but it's not
Yes,
necessarily a problem. People with gender
but
dysphoria
they
are the
want to
ones
fix.
that have the
They're doing
problem.
something about it. It's intrinsically a problem. They're fixing it. They're trying to
No,
fix it.
no, no. Oh, now I see. Not all trans people seek treatments. The trans people who seek treatments are the ones that have gender dysphoria.
Sure, but even if they say my pronouns, that's still a step to fix it. They want to be identified that way.
No,
And I'm saying
that's about
that's
just affirming your identity.
yes, and I'm saying they're
Like,
the issue.
do you like being called he, him?
Do I like being called it? I don't
I mean, do you
not like being
prefer it? I
called
guess
he
is
him.
that like
I
I would, and I guess I mean you might not bite the bullet. We're in a disagreement or whatever. Most people would like to be called their pronouns, whether or not it's something they actively think about. Like if you are somebody who identifies as a man, maybe you don't even think about
right,
it.
but I'm
Somebody
asking
comes
where
up to
those
you and you're like,
pronouns
"Hey,
came.
little girl."
I'm a step behind it. Where did those pronouns come from? And it seems like you're
It's
saying
well,
it's just
like
I want to have blonde hair today.
Why did we create
No,
pronouns?
like what? Okay, so like my he him came from I have a penis. I was just born this way, and so everybody calls me he him because that's what we've always done. Is call people with penises he him. Yeah, I didn't choose it. I never was like I'm going to
Well,
be a he him today. People
that
just started calling me that, and
that's
I've
not
never
necessarily why you're
rejected
calling me
it.
him, but okay.
I mean, it's the same reason I'm called or Joshua. I should say my birth name. I didn't select it. It's just what I was given, and so it's just like he him is what society has called me, and I never said no. Don't call me that. So I'm
Right.
saying
Because
the
that's the
no,
way you
don't call me
because that's the
that.
way it aligns with the way you view yourself.
But well,
But if somebody was like, "Hey girl, hey little girl, hey, go get her. Tell Swa to come over here. Go get her."
yeah, but
You would start to a problem would start to arise from that because it doesn't align with the way you see yourself. It hasn't been
I
a
guess,
problem for you because you're having your identity validated. It's a
but
problem
my
your identity isn't.
identity is
So
validated because I was given, like, you don't know how to speak when you come out. You don't know anything about anything when you're born. I absorbed that he, him is attributed to me. It didn't come from within me. It came from society onto me. You see what I'm saying?
well, so did your gender.
I guess that's what I'm, okay. So, but that's not the case for these people because they reject the one that we try to put onto them.
Well,
And I'm saying, is that just
gender is nature. Any bit of like behavior or things like this is going to be nature and nurture. So there's going to be a bit of both that go into it. But I guess I'm confused on what the hang up is.
my hang up is like if I tomorrow was like I want to be she her, I would say that is a choice I made the same way I said I'm going to go by schwa. It's as much of a personal preference as I like Star Wars or I like whatever.
For you, it probably would be a choice because it's not how you actually.
And so I'm saying if it's not a choice, where did that come from then?
From their identity.
And if,
that's the way they see themselves.
but
So
I'm saying where did that come from? Why do they see themselves that way? And if it came from them, then it's going back to like you don't have to call it dysphoria. Maybe there's another title, but now it's there's something going on there.
So what in just gender dysphoria again? You could be everyone in your life. You could be a trans woman, right? Everyone in your life could be calling you the right pronouns. You could have all of the,
sure, and you can still feel.
And you can still have the discomfort from your gender not aligning with your sex. That is where the problem arises. For other trans people, it typically arises from the social invalidation. So from people telling them no, you're not who you think you are, or you're not this, you can't be this, you can't fit in with this group that you see yourself as, just like all of them see themselves as. It's kind of essentially like more
Yes.
of like,
And I'm getting to the why do they see themselves as X?
right,
What's the why there?
because that's their identity.
But why?
I don't like
That's the question I'm asking. Why? Because like I said, for me, it's because society, like my whole life, I'm a guy. That's just what I was told. So I accepted it the same way I accepted that
it's
this
just
is America. This country is called
no, it's
America. I
just
inherited it,
right. It's just there's the privilege there that
but
me and
they're
you both
saying
have
we
shared.
refuse to inherit it. And I'm
Well,
asking,
it's just that what you came out, how society viewed you, what you were given, all of this lined up with the way you came to view yourself. This is also like gender. It's not something that once you have it, it's never changing. Gender is a fluid thing. Gender is an expression of identity. Identity comes from your
you said
brain.
how you came to view yourself. That's I guess where the crux of the question is. What changed that you came to view yourself differently than the way that society has placed on you? Like I said, it's at that point, it is a
so
rejection of what.
there's expression, and then there's identity, right? I would say the identity always existed, but then you came to the understanding that you want to express yourself like this. And that
But
could
it can't
be
have
for
always
different
existed
reasons.
because now we're getting back into the soul stuff. It didn't always exist. You didn't
Well, I
even have
think,
a
well,
brain.
not, I guess, always.
So is it biological or is
yeah,
it?
from the point your brain has the systems necessary for identity, right? Just like
But then now are we saying my brain when I'm in the womb at 22 weeks and I have a brain is like he him he him he him? No, I mean that's a
I
made
would
up
say that
arbitrary category. So there is no gender to latch onto until you're like 5 and you know what gender is. And there is stuff like that. It doesn't exist before then.
somewhat, yeah. Well, somewhat, but most people come to an understanding of gender around 3. That's actually a pretty studied and understood topic.
Sure,
People
I
come around the
threw
understanding
out
of
5
gender.
out of my ass, but
Yeah, yeah,
but my point was just so it can't be
yeah.
something core to the person. It can't be. It has to
Well,
be developed
it
over the
is.
years. I mean,
It
it
is,
can't be.
but it's something
There is.
developed.
Huh?
Do
Was
you
it
think
developed or is it core?
do you think consciousness is core to the person?
What do
Consciousness
you mean by
develops.
consciousness? Yeah,
The
I think it's core. I mean, it's written into the
Okay,
code
well,
of your
consciousness
DNA.
also
You will
develops.
have. You
Consciousness
will have.
develops the same way identity does. So what's the disconnect? What's the difference there? They
Well,
develop the exact same way.
I would say consciousness is in your DNA. Humans are conscious creatures
Right.
inherently.
No, that's just not true.
What? What do you mean? We're not conscious?
Well, I guess we're conscious, but we're conscious
Yeah.
because our brains give us the ability to be conscious.
Yes, but inherently, like
We
that's
don't have
part of being a
we don't
human.
have consciousness before our brains have the
No,
processing
it's
necessary.
like DNA, for instance. If you look at DNA,
No. Wait, what you're saying is insane. I
what?
just want to say that. No. and
Yeah,
I'll say
here,
what I'll
here
give
let me
you
let me
is
say it this way:
what
the
I'll give you is
DNA is there to start the processes of building your brain in a specific way
yeah, and same
that
with identity.
naturally
Same with
produces,
identity. It's the exact
but
same for identity. I don't get where they're
but
both
different. No,
complex processes that come from complex systems that derive in our brain, both of them. So like
the having an identity, yes, your specific identity, impossible for that to be.
wait, no,
You,
well, it's the same for consciousness because your stream of consciousness is the
yes,
exact same way then as your identity versus like the ability to have it and the ability to have consciousness. Again, they're the
well
exact same
then
thing.
okay, well then I would say
You couldn't say
it's
one does, but the other
sure.
doesn't.
Then I
And
would
what I
say
will
it's
say is
intrinsic. Then
consciousness, it is
it's
like an
biological.
it's an abstractly understood thing. So I guess there's wiggle room for you to say, this is my theory on it. But from what we understand about consciousness is that it is entirely derived from systems within the brain,
I'm fine with that.
which is the
My
exact same way as, and it develops over time, which is the exact same, it's the exact same truth for identity.
Sure, but then this okay, so then that now we're solidifying then that
So if it's true for one,
they
then it's
were
necessarily true for the other.
what I'm saying is now, so then it is intrinsic to them. So it can't be it doesn't it's not fluid in the sense it is I would say it's not fluid like the way that like tomorrow I could just say, you know what, these
No,
Avatar movies aren't hitting it for me. It's not fluid in that sense where it's
no, it is
like
fluid. And
not like that though.
development
You would agree?
necessitates change. What do you mean?
Like Avatar, the movies. Tomorrow I could say, actually, I don't really like these movies. They suck.
That's
That's like
tell me like a plot line.
no. That's like they're not fluid like that. It's not like you have that much control over it to just be like, you know what? And so for me, at the very least, that gets rid of the
But there's
arbitrary.
also,
I'm
you
going
have to
back
be
and forth
careful not
between.
to tie the two. There's gender identity and gender expression. So like I would say again, the identity always exists. The understanding of that identity and the want or even unwant, because you can reject expression, but that existing is something people more so come to along the development.
All right, we're running out of time, so let's wrap it up. But you have one more, right?
I do. I don't know if we'll disagree too much. This is the one I mailed it in on the most. I think religious belief should never override law or legal exemptions. The things that I specifically was like, if you're like a religious who does weddings, what would you call them, like a pastor or
A
whatever,
priest
if
or a
yeah
reverend.
if you wed people, right, in whatever religion, you should wed gay people. I don't think because of your religion you should be allowed to discriminate when that's against the law. I think if you are a doctor or whatever, you perform abortions, I don't think you should be able to say I'm not going to do an abortion because it's not permissible by God, right? If you're a doctor, you don't get to discriminate on the treatments that are legally permissible. You still have the religious freedom by you can just not marry people, or you cannot be a doctor. And then also there's like there's different like way, obviously we've talked a bit about it before about how like also churches don't have to pay taxes. I'm more agnostic to that, so we don't have to like go down that rabbit hole. And I do think there's something to be said about maybe some taxes, but small churches maybe not. But yeah, so like I think that there's a lot of freedom, equality. It's almost over given to a lot of religious groups in America.
So this is a genuine question that I'm just not aware of. Is there a ranking of like freedom of religion, freedom of speech, or are those sort of all at like the same level of like guaranteedness for the country? Does you know what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
asking?
they're all like constitutional rights, so they're at the same level. They
Okay, so then I would say that kind of renders your plea impossible, and that we have freedom to practice our religion. So it's just as simple as that to me. You can't force somebody to do something against their religion. Um, so yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
no, we're not. No, we're not,
unless
because
it was
they can just not wed people or they cannot be a doctor. We're not
well,
forcing them to do anything. They chose those career paths.
no, well,
They can choose to not do them. But if you do them,
wedding people.
you don't get to break the law and
No,
discriminate. I
but
think that
wedding
that's like
people
pretty
is
obviously
a
true,
part of
right?
the religion. Is
Sure.
the
So what
problem?
if my religion was that I hate black people, right? And black people are filth and should be
I mean, you're allowed
slaves.
to hate black people.
Right, but because of my
Well,
religion,
this is where I would
I
say
refuse to serve. What if
harm.
because of my
Obviously,
religion, I refuse to serve black
your
people?
rights end where the other person's face is. You can punch the air, but if you punch somebody, it's a
So
problem.
that should be
It's the
legally
same thing.
permissible to you. I should be allowed to not serve black people on the basis of my religion.
This is one that I get wishy-washy about, because I could see genuine arguments on
Yeah,
both
it's
sides
insane.
of
It's
this.
just insane. It's insane.
Um,
There's no genuine
well,
arguments for discrimination.
I mean, like obviously there is, just not
Oh,
maybe not discrimination
uh,
of innate of what do you call the traits that can't be changed? I guess intrinsic traits.
immutable.
Like I can discriminate against a Nazi. We all agree there. You're a Nazi that can't serve you. So yes, everybody's okay with discrimination. It's
Well,
just are you
no,
okay? Yeah.
no, I don't
But
think
you
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 discriminate on
you
anyone.
think so you have to.
I don't think you can say I'm not going to wed you because you have like racist beliefs or whatever. No, I think you can't discriminate on any grounds. I'm pretty sure that's legally, that's the law.
I
That's
mean, it's
literally
not the
just the
law.
law. It's not
We
even a hot
have
take.
refusal to serve. So if you're an asshole, you don't have to serve that person based on their attitude.
Yeah.
Purely, that's how it actually works. So you can
Well,
say
no, because there's a very high bar that needs to be passed for it to not be
no. It's
discrimination.
no. It's
Yes, there
kick them
is.
out. You
There's
literally can just kick them out where they stand,
Well,
and they were trespass that person
where
from your
most people
business.
get away with it is most people aren't going to file discrimination claims. And also you can just, there's also the grounds if you're being a nuisance, right? And that's what most people would have to claim if it came down to it. Because if
That's
they
what I'm
took you
saying.
to,
I'm
if
saying,
they took you to court for discrimination and you in the court said, I kicked this person out because of their identity or because of
well, yeah.
A or because
I'm
of
talking
this,
about
you're losing every time.
yeah,
You're
no.
losing
But if
every
you're
time
saying I kicked
because
this
it's
person
illegal.
out because he
Because they're
came in,
because they have racist beliefs, yeah, you would lose. You would lose. Now, if you're saying they were being racist, now
no,
that's
the cop,
different
no.
because that's being a nuisance. That gives you grounds to kick them out.
If you
say,
walk in with if you
right,
walk in with an FN word shirt as a white dude with a MAGA hat, I can say, leave my establishment. You're causing a ruckus for making people uncomfortable, and they're gone.
right, because
Cops will come and
there's
escort them out.
slur on your shirt.
That's what I'm saying. But I'm discriminating against people who wear those types of shirts. We're
No,
all okay with this.
no,
That's
discrimination
that's the
would be,
definition of discrimination. You can't. I
no,
mean,
it is necessarily unjustified. You can't
no,
justifiably
it's not.
discriminate.
It's not. It's not. It's not in the definition. I'm gonna look it up right now. Discrimination is judging or choosing against somebody for any reason.
Right. Well, then,
It's prejudice.
no,
I'm
yeah,
being
that just
prejudiced against these
collapses the
people.
word. Discrimination, as colloquially as anyone understands it, necessarily entails negative outcome. And
I don't know what you mean by collapses the word. It's a word. Hey, I'm gonna men and women's bathroom. That's discrimination.
Right.
It's good
Well,
discrimination,
so
but it's
definitions
discrimination.
are descriptive, and what they describe are how words are commonly used. So colloquial
Recognition and understanding of the difference between one thing and another. That's the
definitions,
definition.
are they prescriptive or descriptive?
They're descriptive, but if we
Okay,
can't use them,
and
then we
what are
can't
they
have
So,
conversations.
right. They describe ways words are commonly used. So
Yes.
colloquial definitions are always going to be more useful than dictionary definitions.
The
Again,
dictionary
colloquial
definitions are the
definitions-
colloquial definitions.
No, that's not true.
That's the point of the dictionary, is to
That's
sum up
not
the way that
true.
we use words.
No.
Then what the heck is the point
What's
of a
the
dictionary?
dictionary
Just for fun?
definition of cool?
Of cool?
Yeah. And then how is cool used? Like, what are cool kids in school? And then what's the definition of cool?
The definition of cool, according to Oxford, whatever, is going to be calmness, composure, showing no friendliness toward a person,
Right. And so cool
of
kids
a fairly
50
low temperature.
Right. So cool kids 50 years ago were the kids who wore greaser black jackets. Cool kids now are the sports kids, or cool kids 10 years ago were the sports kids. Cool kids now are TikTok stars. Again, colloquial
The quality, yeah, but the core truth
I'm
of all
just
those
saying,
things is
point proven. I'll take that. Thank
no,
you. Let's move
you
on.
didn't improve anything. You lost because the quality of being fashionably attractive or impressive. That's what it means. What
So how does
is
that pertain-
fashionably attractive or cool, or I'm sorry, impressive changes, but that's what the word cool means.
No, and
That's one of the
then,
uses of the word.
no. And again, you would then go to the definition of fashionable, right? What's fashionable has changed. All these words have changed. And if you're taking definitions
No,
from the
what they
dictionary,
point to
you're going to be lost on
changes.
colloquial uses.
No, I completely disagree.
Okay.
Maybe that can be one of our debates, as well as the
But yeah, we are way
gender
over.
trans stuff.
We
Yeah,
are way over.
I think we got two topics.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know what you guys thought. You guys get we're like 35 episodes in. We missed 2 weeks, so you guys enjoy the extra 20 minutes of us disagreeing about souls and definitions.
Yes,
I love that. But that's we agree on too much politics. We got to disagree about other things. So
it's metaphysical stuff. We start boom, boom, bam.
Exactly. Yeah, that's that. And maybe we'll have to structure more debates around that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're on YouTube, Substack, anywhere, Spotify, anywhere you can watch us. Add us to your playlist, like, subscribe if that's an option. That way you don't miss us. We're here each and every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until next time, peace.
Peace.